So myself and many others have said that the Akshina ambushers are just strictly better than Streltsy as they're currently implemented. There is one matchup where the armor of Streltsy specifically might come into play. That is against the Empire, who have a pretty good mid-tier shock cavalry and lots of ranged units to try and fire back. 5 Streltsy was a popular build at times against the Empire from Kislev in the past, and I definitely think that maybe the armor could come into play here, perhaps, but let's find out. Today I'm up against Tactical Lich. He's got other Mother Ostankia. By the way, you should check out his channel, by the way. Fine gentleman, and definitely has some great multiplayer content. So yeah, things in the woods as well. Lots of cavalry here. He's got dervishes, Kosovites, 2 on each flank, and some winged lancers. So lots of mobility and just a handful of Akshinas. So for my army, got a little bit more of a balanced Empire army. Balthazar Gelt up in the sky here. I've got some war wagons, front line of spearmen, mixed in some free company, a Hellblaster volley gun, and a mortar for some artillery pressure, some Empire Knights, and some huntsmen to combat those scary things in the woods. Warrior Priests to support the front line as well, some extra melee attack and some AoE damage. So we're going to get things started with the war wagons taking some massive damage, getting ambushed terribly by the Akshinas. Their AP crossbows, I guess because they're scoped is why they're AP. I don't know. But them being AP is a little bit of an issue. I think they could probably be like non-AP, but high AP like other crossbows, right? Like Empire crossbows, and it would be just fine. But anyway, dervishes are going to have a pretty bad time as they come forward and face the wrath of the Free Company. But it's, you know, relatively cheap unit to be sacrificing in return for me kind of baiting with these war wagons. I'm trying to maintain visibility on these ambushers as best as I can, but in the meantime, just paying a horrible price. The artillery trying to fire in. Balthazar Gelt also doing some damage there with that bombardment. A little bit on those ambushers, but we're going to have some cavalry shooting the gap here, trying to get in and shut down Hellblaster volley gun. Of course, Kosovite dervishes are the best at this because of By Our Blood. They're going to pop that unbreakable proc and absolutely murder the artillery crew as the Bear cavalry charges in the front line with Ostankia. Going to murderize some Free Company militia, but the Bear Riders don't actually have a lot of great targets to go after, other than my own Empire Knights, which are mostly just on backline protection duty right now, trying to fend off, you know, dervishes wherever they are. I know a lot of people will be very pleased to see these war wagons just getting blasted by the Akshinas and routed off pretty immediately. Hellblaster volley gun as well is facing the end, so definitely getting compromised pretty quickly, but the Empire infantry for myself should be able to stabilize here, start to kind of push back some of these lighter units. That said, there's a lot of scary like cavalry and stuff. Thankfully, the Empire Knights Spearmen were able to, no question, win over the dervishes on the flanks, though now going to get rear charged by winged lancers, things in the woods, combination of which is pretty interesting to see. It does give quite a bit of anti-infantry power, but the things in the woods, again, if there's one matchup where they might struggle, potentially, the Empire, because of Huntsmen, definitely going to be a scary opponent to try and face, although one Huntsman has already been routed off. Things are looking pretty grim for me. A lot of my units have broken and routed at this point, but Balthazar is still alive up in the sky, and he's got Final Chance Mutation on the cooldown right now, or rather trying to build a Winds of Magic to try and use it. Got some more Spearmen. Sigmar's Sons, of course, will be unbreakable. They'll continue fighting and pressuring these Akshinas. It's going to be a great situation for me. A lot of the anti-infantry Tactical Lich has been fairly well savaged. I mean, these things in the woods here, reasonably healthy, but they are trying to devour the Huntsmen, which is definitely a smart play. Try and take out the immediate threats, but still that leaves them within the blob of the Bears, which is going to take the Final Chance Mutation. We're going to target that directly on the Oath Brothers so that it follows them around as they run around. Doesn't necessarily get a great hit on things in the woods. In fact, I don't know if it actually ends up hitting them at all, but still, very expensive cavalry unit to be casting that on, so I think it's well worth it. Got some units coming back from route as well. We're going to try and get them back in action momentarily. Ooh, let's see. I haven't actually seen this Bear missile be used effectively, but oh my goodness. That is just... that's a thing that exists in the game that you can do. It does fire into the flank there of those Empire Knights and actually rout them, but Sankia, let's see. She's getting a pretty good amount of value being used as a chariot and with the ranged attacks especially as this late game phase starts to get on, kind of third and fourth quarter, if you will. Her ranged attacks in particular, and the fact that she's a chariot will allow her to kind of break a lot of these tattered infantry units. The best thing for me is to try and stick together with everything, especially play off these ranged units. The one war wagon that remains, these tattered huntsmen, will be very effective in dealing damage to her, as long as I can kind of keep them in a big cohesive unit, which right now they are, although my own Empire Knights getting chased off here by winged lancers, or spearmen being broken in the front line there. But Balthazar fairly safe up in the sky. There's no ROR Actionas for their net. So Kislev really in this update didn't get a lot to help them out other than that hard net to help them, you know, snipe air targets or just generally combat air units. You know, they really don't have a lot of recourse other than to shoot air units out of the sky. And of course, net does help with that. But in general, flying lords and heroes tend to be much more safe against them. So Balthazar really can just sit up in the sky and cackle for the time being. The Empire Knights also had a saga of here trying to occupy the Actionas in the back line. Sigmar's Son's also been chasing them around. The Empire Knights don't necessarily trade great against the Actionas in prolonged combat, but the Actionas do take more damage, certainly, from their charges than Streltsy would, but arguably would take less damage from artillery due to the stock. So, you know, it's an interesting one. Like, their stock actually baited me into, you know, putting my war wagons a little bit too far forward, which is definitely a blunder on my part, but even still, I mean, again, the stock is an aspect of that, right? So maybe it's up for debate still. I think probably Actionas end up being better in this matchup also, but I could see Streltsy, or maybe even a combination of the two, perhaps with some cheap characters, could be potentially pretty scary in this matchup, actually, for Empire to deal with. But right now, the Oath Brothers here being taken out by my ranged troops, and Mother Ostankia also is, yeah, just trying to provide some support here to them. Surprisingly, actually hasn't used up all of her ammunition yet, but still has quite a bit left. But things are starting to turn. Got some things in the woods kind of overchasing a little bit there, but it's winged lancers coming back in. And coming back from the brink, I'm feeling pretty confident right now as long as I can protect these ranged units. So winged lancers, just going to try and block them with the spears and turn to focus fire with everything else while just distracting Ostankia with what's left of my tattered infantry here. So been kind of all over the place covering the tactics. So let's get a little bit of cinematics as Ostankia just detonates some state troops at close range with her cauldron. Balthazar is going to come in on Quicksilver for a little charge here. Maybe, maybe not. Looks like he faints up out of the air. And the Winged Lancers, wow, still haven't procced by our blood. Come in here and face their glorious fate. Very able to rout off my Huntsmen, do some damage, but ultimately die to a man, as is the Kislev way. Things in the woods also are going to charge in here. Get some attacks on these war wagons. See if they can actually finish off some of their unit models. I see another bear missile launch here. I mean, certainly the animation looks interesting. It doesn't seem to be... Well, it was reasonably effective there. I don't know if it actually does that much HP damage, but kills a lot of weakened unit models, certainly. And Ostankia is racking up quite a bit of value, but she's still having a hard time against all this ranged nonsense. If I can get her unit card to display here. There we go. Yeah, 336 kills and climbing. Over 2,000 damage values, so Ostankia definitely showing her power here, especially as the game kind of gets into this late phase, but just have a little bit too much with this Empire build left in the tank. Gonna have another final transmutation for Balthazar as well, and ranged damage here is pretty much done for the war wagons. Yeah, the Huntsmen actually rout there. Ostankia's going to charge in at close range and just finish off the war wagons, missiles, and melee. But there comes the last final transmutation. Balthazar finishing this himself. Warrior Priest also hanging around, actually. You know, it must be said. He's been providing his buffs and bombardment this whole time. Even buffs up Balthazar as he goes for the final duel. So, there you go. Fiddly old Balthazar Gelt with his... no unique abilities, pretty much. I mean, Staff of Volans exists, gives you a lot of power recharge rate very quickly, which honestly would have been useful for me in this battle, mildly. in order to get the final change mutations a bit quicker, but it does not give spell mastery and or you know, actually extra power reserves. So, my opinion, not worth it. Doesn't have any of his other items usable in multiplayer, and just generally is thought of as being outclassed by the power creep. For me, personally, it's nice to see him come in and fight against Ostankia and win a little bit, although I have to say, to have some experience fighting against the newer Kislev stuff now, and I was sort of knowing what to expect to a degree. So it's not like this build is necessarily designed as a hard counter, but I do feel like I had some pretty good tools to combat what Kislev can bring to the table, just in general. I mean, certainly a build with, like, a lot of armored Kossars might give me some problems, but to be honest, yeah, like, armored Kossars supported by light cavalry, if I wasn't able to protect the artillery, especially, Balthazar can give some pretty good anti-infantry damage with that Searing Doom, but it's not incredible. But anyway, very well played Tactical Lich. Like I said, go check his channel out. And yeah, Ostankia definitely did her part, carrying almost 3,000 damage value by the end of it, just showing how powerful she could be in that late game type of a situation. Ultimately, it was just really the Oath Brothers that were the biggest letdown. I mean, this is one of the battles, too, where I haven't seen things the Woods pay for themselves, which is why I say Empire is probably one of the best factions for going up against them. So, yeah, arguably, this is maybe one of the few matchups where the new units really don't do as much for you. Now, yeah, Incarnate Elemental Beast is, or Elemental Incarnate Beast, whatever it is. It's not also not going to be good here due to Empire's missile units, so yeah, Ostankia herself, though, does seem pretty strong. Again, might be vulnerable to getting sniped by somebody like Karl Franz, but with your own missile unit support, you should be able to kind of screen him out okay. It's definitely an interesting one, though. Remains to be seen once it gets into the hands of the general public, of course. Akshina's actually did pretty well, so maybe I take it back. Them plus Streltsy maybe is the way to go here, honestly. Or, I don't know, Things in the Woods, maybe just switch them out for more traditional cavalry. Hard to say. But, yeah, for the Empire side, Empire is what they have been. War wagons can be quite strong, but vulnerable to certain types of units. Certainly the Akshinas are one of them. Huntsmen are awesome. Free Company helps support. Just generally a lot of stuff. Trades cost effectively, which helps me win overall. So very fun stuff, very well played to Tactical Lich. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.